Tonight, some trustees say safety concerns kept them from attending tonight's Thornton Township Board meeting. Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard also serves as supervisor of the South Suburban.
In a new twist in the tumultuous political saga surrounding Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard, she is now facing a lawsuit following a shocking outburst during a public meeting. What began as a tense discussion about local governance quickly devolved into a verbal tirade, leaving trustees and community members in disbelief. This explosive incident has further deepened the divisions within Dalton's leadership and complicated Henyard's already troubled administration. During the recent board meeting, tensions escalated when trustees expressed concerns over Henyard's leadership, including allegations of corruption, misuse of funds, and an increasingly authoritarian decision-making style. They accused her of sidestepping them on critical issues, awarding contracts without proper approval, and mishandling public resources. Henyard, visibly angered by the mounting criticisms, responded with a fierce verbal attack, escalating the situation and prompting legal action against her, raising questions about her future in office.
I want to thank my two trustees, Trustee Andrew Holmes and Trustee Stan Brown, for showing up.
At Village Hall, Mayor Tiffany Henyard, two trustees, and some department heads attended a canceled meeting.
As you can see, the board did not show up, and these are the things that the residents are tired of. When we sit here and we set a schedule to attend a board meeting, their jobs as legislative council is to...
Witnesses described the scene at the recent Dalton board meeting as chaotic, with Mayor Tiffany Henyard shouting at trustees and accusing them of plotting against her. She dismissed their concerns as baseless personal attacks, and her language grew increasingly aggressive. Henyard lashed out at her colleagues, referring to their actions as a witch hunt aimed at undermining her authority. Her outburst shocked both the trustees and members of the public as she repeatedly interrupted others, raised her voice, and displayed behavior deemed unprofessional for an elected official. Henyard's tirade reportedly lasted several minutes, with her refusing to yield the floor to other speakers. She accused the trustees of being politically motivated, implying they sought to ruin her reputation for personal gain. The meeting ended in disarray, leaving trustees visibly shaken and the audience stunned by her behavior. In the aftermath, several trustees who were targeted during Henyard's rant took swift legal action, citing defamation and misconduct. They filed a lawsuit against her, claiming her behavior was not only inappropriate but also harmful to their reputations and their ability to serve the community effectively. The lawsuit alleges that Henyard's public outburst violated multiple codes of conduct and crossed legal lines, including slanderous statements about certain trustees. The legal complaint centers on Henyard's accusations that the trustees were involved in conspiratorial activities to oust her from power, claims the trustees argue were entirely fabricated, intended to deflect attention from Henyard's own scandals. They assert that her public outburst was an intentional effort to damage their standing within the community and undermine their credibility. One trustee, in particular, who was singled out during the meeting, stated in the lawsuit that Henyard's rant caused emotional distress and harmed their reputation as a public servant. The trustees' legal team is seeking damages, arguing that the mayor's outburst has negatively impacted their ability to perform their duties and maintain trust within the community. Initially, it was believed that the meeting would proceed, but it ended up being canceled due to safety concerns, with the notice stating, "Tonight's board meeting has been canceled due to safety concerns. There's no quorum." This decision followed unresolved safety issues raised during the meeting, indicating that Henyard chose not to halt the proceedings. Despite this, she attended and delivered a lengthy, impassioned speech, setting the stage for the tumultuous events that followed.
Competing village board meetings, now at the center of a lawsuit. Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard, trustees Andrew Holmes and Stan Brown say this Monday night meeting at the Park District was illegal. Max Solomon is their attorney.
We believe strongly that that meeting was improperly called and improperly held. The residents of
Tyrone Izem Jr. has filed a lawsuit against Mayor Tiffany Henyard, alleging misleading conduct surrounding the denial of his business application, a case that dates back to May. Izem Jr. claims he was misled about his ability to establish a barbershop at 1031 Asai Boulevard in Dalton, Illinois. He purchased the property with the intention of expanding his long-standing barbering business in the south suburbs, based on assurances from Keith Freeman, a representative of the defendants, who told him that his permits would be issued within weeks and that he would receive his business license. However, Izem Jr.'s application was ultimately denied verbally, without any formal written notice. This denial reportedly occurred after Carmen Carr, executive assistant to Mayor Henyard, informed Izem Jr. that the mayor opposed a barbershop at that location. This raises legal concerns and suggests potential misconduct on the part of village officials. The plaintiffs are seeking a judgment against the defendants for allegedly misleading them into investing in the property under false pretenses. They contend that they made considerable financial investments to enhance the property based on assurances from village officials that they could operate their intended business there. There may even be video evidence supporting their claims. Additionally, it appears that Mayor Henyard may have had other interests in the property, as she allegedly communicated her preference for a different business, possibly one with a wealthier investor, over the barbershop. This raises questions about her motives, particularly given her history of legal disputes. In light of these ongoing challenges, one might suggest to Henyard that if she finds herself facing lawsuits consistently, it might be time to reflect on her approach as a supervisor. A reevaluation of her business practices could be beneficial. Observers have noted that her meetings often feel repetitive, with the same individuals making similar points. It's as if they are reading from a script or have run out of fresh ideas. Some attendees pointed out that many criticisms are directed at her, mirroring past discussions. There's even a recording capturing the repetitive nature of her statements, echoing phrases from meetings months ago. This pattern has led to frustration among community members, who feel as though the conversation is being manipulated. The sense of being under siege is palpable, with many wondering how this cycle will ultimately impact Dolton's governance and its residents' trust in leadership.
Now, trustee Carmen Carlisle says after trusting Henyard and remaining silent, she will be a whistleblower against Henyard.
The recent town hall meeting was notable for its lack of quorum, with trustees Carlisle and Gonzalez absent and trustee Jerry Jones having resigned. While we could speculate on the reasons behind Jones's departure, let's focus on what transpired during the meeting. Without the necessary number of trustees to conduct official business, Mayor Tiffany Henyard seized the opportunity to address the audience without any pushback from the board. Allowing her to speak without facing counterarguments raises concerns, particularly as she campaigns for re-election, whether for her supervisory role or the mayor's position. The gathering felt like an all-pro Tiffy event, where no one challenged her statements. I'm not suggesting that debates are necessary, but it's troubling that she was granted such an extensive platform minus 25 uninterrupted minutes to speak, primarily to seniors and others reliant on essential services who are likely to vote. The absence of dissent or counterpoints during her address is concerning, especially given her frequent dissatisfaction with other meetings where trustees Gonzalez and Carlisle offered their opposing views. Even Jerry Jones, before his resignation, provided some level of challenge to her assertions. This dynamic allows Henyard to shape the narrative without facing opposition, a tactic that benefits her politically and influences public perception in the township. However, for those of us outside the township without voting rights, this situation may not serve our interests. While we can analyze the events, ultimately she is addressing an audience that favors community events like bingo and toy drives, activities that resonate with constituents looking for engagement. This positions her as an active leader, contrasting with those who may hesitate to step forward. Henyard suggested that the absence of trustees wasn't driven by safety concerns, emphasizing that public safety has consistently been her top priority. I can understand the concerns surrounding safety. Many township meetings can escalate quickly. However, it raises the question: does the supervisor have a strategy to avoid backlash if she continues to behave erratically, believing she can escape the consequences of her actions? This approach may not be the most secure way to manage a meeting, especially when tensions are high and emotions are running wild. It's crucial to have security personnel who can not only de-escalate situations, but also anticipate when trouble is brewing. They should be able to step in before the situation spirals out of control, as once it does, preventing a full-blown conflict becomes significantly more difficult. We've all experienced heated arguments or tense moments, whether at work or elsewhere, where you can feel trouble brewing. The best strategy is to diffuse the tension before it reaches that breaking point. In the absence of opposing voices, Henyard's unchecked narrative creates an environment where public perception can easily tilt in her favor, but it's essential to consider how this dynamic affects those who are not part of her immediate constituency. The lack of engagement from opposing trustees may ultimately raise questions about accountability and transparency within Dolton's leadership.
How y'all doing? Ain't no stopping us now.
All right, karaoke night apparently at City Hall. That's Dolton Mayor Tiffany Henyard kicking off tonight's board meeting with her rendition of the 1979 hit Ain't No Stopping Us Now. The reason for the throwback jam? An appellate court ruling.
When the moment arose to address Paul Roberts, it should have been the perfect opportunity to ask him to take a seat and allow someone else to step in. Instead, things quickly spiraled out of control. Henyard referenced previous meetings where safety protocols, such as hiring security firms and using metal detectors, had been enforced. But the real issue stemmed from the chaotic meeting prior to today's town hall. At that meeting, Paul had the floor, but his supporters surrounded him, creating an intense scene. The usual facilitator of these meetings was absent last week, presumably taking a break, and the security on September 24th was clearly inadequate. It could have turned very badly, and had things escalated to a physical confrontation, I doubt the existing security team could have diffused the situation. They just seemed unprepared, particularly that guy in sunglasses. What was his name? I can't remember, but he was completely ineffective. I'm not suggesting he was entirely to blame, but let's just say he could have used a little more energy. He looked lost the entire time, and in such high-stakes environments, it's crucial to maintain control. Despite all the talk about safety, Henyard's stance appears inconsistent. During the last meeting, she allowed people to yell, heckle, and interrupt Trustee Carlisle without stepping in. In fact, she seemed almost amused by the chaos. Given that these meetings have been chaotic for quite some time, it's no surprise that safety has become a major concern for her. Dismissing it would feel insincere, especially when her actions seem to contradict her words. Beyond safety, Henyard also addressed the township's financial situation. She claimed that when she assumed leadership, the township was facing a $4.2 million deficit, but I can't verify that figure. Now, however, she asserts that the township is sitting on a $9 million surplus. Again, this is just what's being claimed. She commended her administration's financial management, but the specifics of the budget remain vague. The most puzzling aspect is that Robert Hunt, the township's CPA, who Henyard often mentions, admitted he wasn't aware of the precise surplus figures. As I've said before, I'm no numbers expert, but if I were an accountant, I would expect to know basic financial figures. It's strange that the administration has been criticized for overspending, being reckless, and even accused of theft. Yet when asked about the surplus, they couldn't provide a clear answer. It felt like they were either dodging the question or genuinely clueless. Even Ms. Ross seemed reluctant to provide an exact figure, leaving us to wonder if she was lying or simply scared. The whole situation felt bizarre. How could you not know that number? If you're running things, you should have that surplus figure at your fingertips. The administration's lack of clarity only raises more questions, especially given the board's failure to pass a budget. This continued inaction casts doubt on the township's actual financial state. During the meeting, Henyard also outlined her plan to address property tax refunds, positioning it as a way to alleviate the area's steep tax rates. She attributed the tax hikes to various entities, including local school boards and the Park District, casting herself as a champion for residents seeking financial relief. Politically, this is a savvy move. People tend to support leaders who offer tangible benefits, regardless of their broader opinions. Throughout the meeting, Henyard repeatedly portrayed herself as a target of attacks and misinformation, suggesting that scrutiny of her leadership stems primarily from her identity as the first female and black supervisor of the township. As the town's first black mayor, she hinted that these smear campaigns are driven more by her race than her actions. She urged the audience to be cautious of rumors, emphasizing that she has always been transparent and truthful in her dealings. Interestingly, she mentioned the idea of possibly involving a YouTuber to help share her story. It feels like there's competition between her narrative and that of various YouTubers, each presenting different sides of the story, while residents are left confused in the middle. One person even pointed out that Roland Martin is also considered a YouTuber. He's a media personality who had her on his show. Yet she claimed she had no involvement with Trustee Carlisle's charity, which wasn't true. I would love to see her go on a YouTuber's platform, but she would need to find someone who would let her speak freely. No restrictions. The big names like Pink Book Lessons probably aren't an option. I doubt she even does interviews. As for Nate the lawyer, that would be a non-starter. He's too sharp and knowledgeable, and it wouldn't end well for her. In reality, she might be better off with someone less informed about the situation, someone who would give her an easy pass. But honestly, I just don't see that happening. The meeting itself wasn't officially sanctioned due to the lack of quorum, which ultimately provided Henyard a free platform to push her perspective without any pushback. This situation not only raises concerns about transparency, but also about the integrity of governance within the township.